I had Professor Chris Gardner on the podcast. He's a Stanford professor, and people will know him from the Netflix series You Are What You Eat. He's quite famous for the twin study, and I almost wish we had a twin study for this. I want to see twin A who's riding 10 hours a week with no heat training, with a threshold of 300 watts. Twin B doing the exact same training with a threshold of 300 watts. Let's retest them both after 6 weeks and see the effect on threshold.
Oh man, it'll definitely, yeah. It should definitely go up. I mean, the data, the science, all the research says like, yes. In fact, it's more reliable than altitude. You know, I think that's the part.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's the part that I was seeing in those research studies. And again, we can maybe link some of these things for your readers or watchers because, you know, in those studies, it's not from us. It's just what's available out there. There's more reliable reactions to heat training than there is altitude in many cases, because as you're well aware, some people just don't adapt in the same ways or see benefits, and it's always a gamble.
Yeah, and look, you need to be well set up to adapt to altitude as well. Like if you're even going into altitude blindly without the precursors to make those red blood cells, you can dig yourself into serious trouble.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot more consistent, I would say, positive gains on the thermal side in that research. So we'll link that maybe if it's possible for your viewers, so we can share that. It's not me; it's some scientists and research, and we look at that stuff quite often to be like, that's really interesting because it's way more accessible. I mean, very few of us can take a 2-week holiday to an altitude camp, but most of us can sweat it out, you know, in a heat session for an hour and a half, a couple days a week, 3 days a week, let's say.
I think altitude training also has genetic responders and non-responders. Have you found that with heat training?
We haven't seen that yet, but it's a really interesting. Yeah, I'm curious. I haven't seen any studies that specifically identify that. There are definitely people that I think adapt better, but that's anecdotal. So, you know, people always say like, I'm better in the heat or I'm better with this, but I haven't seen any data with that. That'd be really interesting to look at. I think the twin study, you're onto something. We should get the Brownlees because they're historically. I was at that Mexico race, and the irony was my wife was